Taylor leans down next to John Scott and brushes John Scott to the left and right. Taylor responds, "Shit!" Pulls out a phone, which she had forgotten she had given Stephen earlier. Or perhaps the other man she had given it to earlier, John Scott. She reaches into John Scott's pocket and realizes his phone is not there. Immediately has a flashback to John giving it to Stephen earlier. And flips back to reality. Stephen, in response, Stephen! Stephen seems dazed at the situation of the ambulance truck in which he notices there was nobody in the driver's seat across the street. Turns back around, ignoring Taylor. Taylor responds, Stephen! Stands up from the situation and walks next to Stephen to look at the transaction roll in the semi-truck. There was no... Stephen and Taylor had just happened to look into the driver's seat of the semi-truck. There was nobody present inside the truck. There was not a single trace of blood or DNA or anybody in the truck, and the truck was slammed between the apartment complex and Kevin's car, along with a bus transit site shelter. Taylor looks at Stephen. Stephen responds, Taylor, there's no way in hell the driver could have gotten out. Look at it. Look at the angles. Taylor looks at it. I don't know what I'm looking at. I don't know what to see. Stephen grabs Taylor slightly. Look at the angle. Taylor looks at it. Bullshit! And walks closer to the situation to realize that there was no... It responds, there's no way the driver couldn't have gotten out. Kevin, realizing his own son was still in shock, sits up slightly. I'm not so sure there was a driver, man. It is his response to the situation. And Taylor looks at Kevin and says, literally responding, I don't know what you're talking about. We all know about your delusions from the past. Stephen pulls out the phone and gives it to Taylor. Taylor answers the phone and immediately dials 911. Taylor walks close to the road, but Stephen halts Taylor for walking too close to the road. Taylor stops 10 feet before the road and when she says into the cellular device, hello, we have an emergency at 857 Mon Mueller Drive. The group sit next to John Scott, in which they've noticed he's still in a state of panic. The state of panic he's in just happened to be post-traumatic shock from an event that just happened earlier. Kevin whispers in John's ear, it's okay, son. We'll have help here soon. Back across the little area they're in, Taylor responds within the cellular device, oh, thank you, Jesus. So you had a police car here and see how it looked in 3 minutes? A moment of silence. Taylor responds, oh, thank you. Walks toward the group and clips the phone shut. However, when she clips the phone shut, a small nail falls out of the phone. hinting at her own death. As she turns around and notices the small piece get blown away in the wind. Similar to Jeremy Clifton's premonition death, in which she was sucked and killed by an F8 tornado.